Hi students, welcome back to geology. We are now moving on to sedimentary rocks. So last week we looked at igneous rocks. We're moving on to the second type now. And we're going to try to look at what happens when rocks break down. So we know that rocks are pretty rough, right? And they feel like they're really stable and permanent. But at Earth's surface, rocks are actually really fragile and they start to weaken. And so our guiding question for this video is going to be, how does solid rock become sediment? Okay, so through this video, we are going to talk about weathering and erosion and what that looks like when rocks are at the surface. But before we dive straight into that, I want to bring you back to the rock cycle. Okay, so as we go through these rocks, I want you to make sure you're making note of how each rock is created. And as long as you know the processes that that it takes to create each rock type, you can complete a rock cycle. You don't have to memorize what it looks like. All you have to do is remember how each rock is formed. So we learned last week about igneous rocks, and this is what's created, the rock type that's created from molten rock that cools either at the surface or below the surface. This week we're learning about sedimentary rocks, which form from erosion and deposition, and then reformation into a solid rock. And then next week, we're going to move on to metamorphic rocks, which are formed from heat and pressure as rocks are buried. Okay, so let's start moving into sedimentary rocks here. So in the making of a sedimentary rock, these are created at or near Earth's surface. So in fact, 80% of Earth's surface is sedimentary rocks, whereas a majority of the Earth's crust overall is igneous, because igneous includes magma and lava that's molten rock. But sedimentary rocks and, for example, metamorphic rocks are not either of those things. So they make up a much smaller part of the Earth's crust overall. So only about 5% of the Earth's crust is considered sedimentary, although most of what you see at the surface is sedimentary rock. Okay. So sedimentary rocks form from pre-existing rocks that are broken down, transported somewhere else, and then form a whole new rock. And we'll talk about those processes in the next couple slides. So here are all of the processes. In this video, we're going to specifically focus on weathering and erosion, and then we'll move on to transportation, deposition, and then the final stage that turns a rock or sediment into a rock, which is lithification. So weathering and erosion are the first two things that happen when a rock is at the Earth's surface or exposed to the elements, as it were. It starts to weather and deteriorate. Okay, and we'll talk about those processes and what those look like. And then the actual removal of that material from its original source is called erosion. Then it's transported by gravity, wind, water, or ice. And then it's left behind somewhere called deposition. So it settles out in some sort of medium, whether that was by gravity, wind, water, or ice. And then it can solidify into a rock through lithification, which is compaction and cementation. All right, so let's start with weathering and erosion. With weathering, there are two main types. There is physical or mechanical weathering, and there's chemical weathering. Physical mechanical weathering is the rock breaking down into smaller and smaller pieces. There's no change in the rock's chemistry or mineral composition. The pieces are just getting smaller, so it's a physical change. Chemical weathering involves the chemical transformation of one or more of the compounds in the rock. So you are changing the mineral composition of that rock. Okay, so if there's a chemical change, it's chemical weathering. If there's a physical change, it's physical weathering. Special types of physical weathering include unloading, root wedging, frost wedging, and temperature change. And we'll go through each of those individually. Except for temperature change, I don't have a slide on that, so let me talk about that one here, just so that we get our feet wet a little bit. So when rocks are exposed at the surface, they experience the same temperatures that we experience. For example, here in the Central Valley, we experience really warm weather in the summer, and we can get down to below freezing overnight in the winter. And so those extremes put pressure on a rock. When something is heated, it expands. And when something is cooled, it contracts. And if this happens overnight, for example, like in Yosemite Valley, it can get up to 90 degrees in the valley during the day and at night it can go down into the 30s. And that drastic temperature change puts a lot of pressure on these rocks and it weakens them over time. All right, now we're going to talk about unloading. So unloading is the process during which a magma plume is upwelling that has crystallized and is now experiencing uplift and erosion. Okay, so if you look at the bottom left-hand photo there, you can see that the igneous body is at depth and it's experiencing pressure from all sides. When the overburden pressure is removed from uplift and erosion, it starts to expand. And these expansions cause layers, which we call sheeting. And if we continue to see this weathering, they start to kind of fall off. And you can see in that image kind of like pieces of it kind of falling off there. And we call those exfoliation domes. So a good example of this would be Half Dome, which is the upper left-hand photo there. You can see all of those cracks in the rocks, which we also call joints. Those are fractures. And all of those that come off, they come off in sheets. And overall, this is also an exfoliation dome. All right, looking at frost wedging. This is going to happen where we can see freezing temperatures. So if we don't have freezing temperatures, this isn't going to happen in the Sahara Desert, for example. So when water freezes, it expands, right? It can expand up to 9% once it's frozen. So if there are pre-existing cracks in rocks, water can seep into those cracks. When water freezes, it expands and puts pressure on those cracks and it opens up the rock further and breaks it down further. Okay, so this is, and over time, this will happen as the freezing and thawing occurs and rocks start to break apart even more. Root wedging is similar, but we're looking at trees basically intruding into these crevices or growing in these crevices and rocks. So any kind of biological activity, this could be trees, it could be bushes, anything with roots, any plant roots. When they are growing, they are looking for nutrients like water. And in rocks, the water is going to be in the fractures or the cracks in the rock. So that's where all of the roots are going to try to follow, and then they're going to grow and expand, and they'll break that rock apart eventually. All right, so that was physical weathering. Now we're going to move on to chemical weathering. All right, so chemical weathering includes oxidation, dissolution, and hydrolysis. I have a slide for each of these, so we will just move right along past this slide for you. All right, so oxidation's the first one. This one's probably the easiest for students to recognize in a rock because it turns it orange. And this is from ferrous iron and oxygen combining to make ferric iron oxide, which is basically hematite. So in this granite here, this was just a regular granite at the surface. You can see the rim on the outer edge that has turned orange. And so this is a superficial process. The rocks need to be exposed to oxygen in order for it to rust. We also need iron present. So if none of the minerals in the rock contain iron, we're not going to see it rust. Okay, so this is probably one of the easiest ones for students to recognize as you are looking at samples. Dissolution also occurs. We sometimes get acidic water, whether that's natural or like rainwater, or that's from pollution. And things like limestone contain a heavy amount of calcium carbonate, which is a basic component of the rock. And anything that's slightly acidic can cause it to essentially dissolve because acid will eat a base. So for example, when you're eating a Tums has calcium carbonate in it. That's what it's made of. And it's designed to neutralize your stomach acid so that it's not causing you indigestion or acid reflux anymore. And so that's kind of what's happening here, but in a natural sense. So the calcium carbonate or the Tums is the rock, and then the acidic water would be like your stomach acid. Okay, so there's a fancy equation there, but you don't have to necessarily memorize that. You just want to make sure that you understand that we have some sort of acidic waters here and a bicarbonate rock of some sort, this example being limestone. So in Florida, for example, this causes a lot of sinkholes and karst topography where you see things that look like they're dissolved. We see a lot of caves, sinking streams, things like that. And the last form of chemical weathering we're going to look at is hydrolysis. So this happens when our silicate minerals, remember that contain silica and oxygen, are unstable at the Earth's surface, and they generally transform into clay minerals like kaolinite. So here I have an example of a feldspar, which is a silicate mineral that has experienced hydrolysis and transformed into kaolinite. So really, the addition here is excess water with our silicate minerals. Okay, so you need a silicate mineral and you need water here. There's, again, another fancy equation there to show you how feldspar becomes kaolinite. But the two components you need are silicate minerals, and water. Their non-silicate minerals are not going to turn into clay minerals through hydrolysis. Okay? All right, and the last type of weathering I want to talk about, which is technically a physical weathering, is differential weathering. And this occurs when different types of rocks or different situations of rocks where they are situated are experiencing different rates of erosion. Okay, so I have two images here. One is from water and one's from wind. The upper right-hand corner shows you wind erosion because wind picks up small particles like sand, but it doesn't transport them really high into the atmosphere. And so if the rocks are really high, they might not experience the wind erosion from sand beating against it, but close to the surface, they might. And so that's what that's showing there. And then the bottom photo there, it's showing how wave erosion can erode rocks, but the waves don't get high enough to erode the entire thing the same. And so you might see rocks that are less resistant to the elements that they are being exposed to being eroded away faster than the other rocks. So we just call that differential weathering. And here's another example of that for you with the arches from Arches National Monument. So in this video, we talked about sedimentary rocks coming from their overall processes: weathering, erosion, transportation, deposition, and liquefaction. And we focus specifically on weathering. That can be chemical or physical, depending on the type of change that is exhibited. And in your notes, I want you to explain one mechanical and one chemical weathering process and describe how they are different. All right, I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.